Brother Williams, you have our attention.
In September of 1937, at a General Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses in Columbus, Ohio, the speaker was Brother J.F. Rutherford, who was president of the society at that time. At the conclusion of his Sunday address, he released a book and held it up called Enemies. Enemies. And he made the statement, he says, "You'll notice that its cover is tan. And we will tan that old lady's hide with it." So we're going to find out in our discussion what that old lady or who that old lady is that he was talking about. Does she still exist today? Did they tan her hide with it? And why is it important for we able to come to that conclusion, a proper conclusion? So we're going to focus on 3 chapters in the Bible book of Revelation that Jesus gave to his apostle John, chapter 17, 18, and 19. And if we give attention to some of the details, we're going to kind of move about in that because we want to establish why that old lady needs her hide tanned, who's going to do the tanning, when's it going to happen, and she is also identified as a prostitute. And why it's important that we have nothing to do with her. Stay clear. So those are some important factors that we're going to identify. The very first verse identifies the position of this prostitute that she has there. First verse says, "Come, I will show you the judgment on the great prostitute who sits on many waters." Now, what are these waters that she sits on? That's not waters of the ocean. If you look in verse 15, drop down there, it says, "The waters that you saw where the prostitute is sitting" means peoples and crowds and nations and tongues. So she has an empire that she rules over or that she sits on. Nations and peoples, and she is very much all over the place, all over in this earth. And furthermore about her, "And earth's inhabitants were made drunk with the wine of her sexual immorality." So she has kind of induced them with the wine or intoxication of her wine into a sexual immorality which Jehovah is vehemently opposed to. So, and you notice that it says that she's a mystery. Drop down to verse 5. He even puts a name on her, top of her head. And on her forehead was a name, Babylon the Great, mother of the prostitutes and of the disgusting things of the earth. So the Revelator recalled under inspiration that it's disgusting, her existence and her presence, and the influence and the power that she exercises and she has. And that's clearly, very clear to Jehovah, to his servants. It's right on her forehead. Well, that takes us back to ancient Babylon that ruled. Nimrod in Genesis, the 10th chapter and the 11th chapter, talks about Nimrod founding this empire, this city of Babylon. And Nimrod, who was he? It says he was a hunter in opposition to Jehovah. And the fact that he was a hunter in opposition to Jehovah, he's not a great hunter. Likely he killed humans as well. He had no consideration for human life. It wasn't just he was a sportsman and liked to go out and shoot deer and antelope. It was humans too. He was an advocator, a false worshiper. And remember, there is where the temple was built in ancient Babylon. And interestingly, Babylonian practices were carried over and adopted into Babylon the Great, which makes it up. a book that was written by the 19th century Roman Catholic cardinal, The Development of Christian Doctrine, says the use of temples, I'm quoting from him, those dedicated to particular saints, ornamented with branches of trees, incense, lamps, candles, holy water, asylums, holidays, seasons, possessions, blessings on the field, on and on and on and on. He says, are all of pagan origin and are sanctified by adoption into the church. Well, that tells us where all of these things come from. I was out in the ministry this past week, and of course I went up to the door in the Halloween season, and it was just fully decorated with Halloween. I mean, I could hardly get to the door. Young lady comes to the door and says, "You don't need to talk to me." She says, "I'm an atheist. You know, I don't want to talk about the Bible." I says, "Well, but you practice a religion." And she said, "No, I don't." I said, "Yes, you do." I says, "Look up where the practice of Halloween comes from. It's a spiritistic practice. It's a religious practice." And she quickly shut the door back.